Now we're on record. So before I go ahead, I want to find out if I'm audible enough. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Doc.
Yes, sir.
Okay, beautiful. Let me check my audio instruments, and I can see it is fine. My input volume is rather high. Okay. And then next, let me share my slide so that we begin in earnest. I could see that my slide, my document has 70 something slides. So that's quite a lot of slides. And I'm wondering if we can cover it in this short time, but let's begin somewhere. So today we're looking at some fundamentals of establishing oneself as an academic author in the humanities. Now, first of all, we are presenting this topic against a backdrop of a decline in academic output in Africa after the golden period, that's the 1960s to 70s. When many African countries gained their independence in the 60s, they began to establish universities, premier universities and other universities to aid in national development. So University of Ghana established, Ghana established University of Ghana. In Nigeria, you had University of Ibadan, University of Nigeria. In Kenya, you had University of Nairobi. Uganda, you had Makerere. In Tanzania, you had University of Dar es Salaam. And they were doing very well. They were attracting scholars from all over the world. They were paying well. There was a lot of research. In fact, in most disciplines, you would see that a good part of the literature you deal with, a good proportion of the foundational literature in Africa for African disciplines were coming from that period, the 60s to the 70s. In philosophy, for instance, we had African philosophy, we had the debates about the nature of African philosophy, beginning from Tempels to Hortunji, and then to Peter Baldwin, and then to Kwesi Wiredu, Kwame Jechi, and those were all in the golden periods, But after that, academics began to decline. A lot of African countries were taken over by military governments. They didn't know a hoot about university education. They didn't pay well. They don't know the needs of African universities. So scholars began to go abroad. People began to go where they will be better paid, or where they will be paid what is worth their training and sweat. So today, Africa contributes less than 1% of global research. Just imagine 1%, the largest continent in the world. So now, but let's come down to the University of Ghana. Majority of the research output is from the natural sciences. When you go to Scopus and Skyva, you'll see a depiction of or a map of the university's research output. You see that the arts and humanities is contributing only 3.1% of the research output of the whole university, arts and humanities. But arts and humanities has a very large population. So for a very large population to be contributing 3.1%, okay, let's look at this chart, this pie chart. This is UG research contributions chart. I got it from Skyva. Now you can see the area to your right, to my right, the blue area. It shows you that medicine is contributing about half of, just medicine alone, about half of the university's entire research output. Then you have the social sciences contributing just about a quarter. Then look at arts and humanities, the green area. And then you have nursing, pharmacology, immunology, all that. So little wonder the university is dominated by leaders from the sciences. Majority of the vice chancellors, pro vice chancellors, and members of the university senior management happen to be in the sciences. And because of that, you see that most of the things we do in university, they have the great influence of the science. Mr. Lamptey, your microphone is on. You need to put it off.
Sorry.
And then, okay, so let me pull this off. Okay, so what are the factors responsible? Like we treated in our last class, it is easier to research closed than open systems. Closed systems are more of mathematical investigations. They are not like taking positions in humanities debates. Now, for example, an investigation to determine the soil benefits of a certain type of earthworm. That's a factual investigation. Once what the author is seeking is discovered, the facts are the facts. We don't debate facts. So the nature of the investigation makes it less controversial, and it also makes it need more hands on deck. That's why most scientific research is done by a multiplicity of scientists. They come together to do most of their research, and then you see that most publications in the sciences bear the names of so many authors, and sometimes you can see up to 100 authors behind a publication. Let's look at this. The reason for so that's the reason for the prevalence of multiple authorship in natural sciences. An average natural science article has 10 or more authors. In fact, the most widely cited natural science article has about 2,500 authors. You will see when you are looking at that article, you see that a couple of pages, not just the first page, was dedicated to listing the authors. But in the humanities, most issues are essentially contestable. A lot of positions could be taken on an issue. I may not like the position you've taken, you may not like mine. So it makes it difficult for multiple authorship in humanities compared to natural sciences. For example, a debate about modeling our modern social institutions, such as our democracy, after traditional counterparts. Let's assume we are debating about what to do to our democracy and how we should model it after our traditional political institutions. Now, in the humanities, 1,000 positions may emerge. Some will say we should model it directly, we should just copy our traditional political institutions without modification. Some will reject any modeling at all, and then some will accept that there should be modeling with modification. Now, when you come to the modification category of views, the category of all those who accept we should copy our traditional systems with modification. There could be hundreds of positions about what the modification should be. So that's research in the humanities. That's why in the humanities, it is difficult for two individuals to adopt exactly the same position. The nature of humanities is such that issues are much more nuanced compared to the natural sciences. And that's because social systems have this openness, essential openness. Now, what I want to do in this lecture is to present some hard skills. I call them hard skills. There's this distinction between hard and soft skills. Hard skills are skills you need to get the job done. For instance, if you are an architect, You need skills about drawing and, putting the design of a building on paper. That's a hard skill. But as an architect, you need soft skills. You need soft skills such as dedication, hard work, diligence. You need to be a careful person. You need to be meticulous. Those are soft skills, So the hard skills are the official, the ones you obviously need as a professional. But the soft ones are not really linked to any profession. They are skills you need as a human being to succeed in any profession. So this lecture is about hard skills. And I've arranged for Prof. Tadeusz Mes. He's a professor of philosophy in South Africa to give us some ideas about soft skills. I think his class is one of the last. Okay, so let's begin. Originality and credit. Publishing in humanities requires a lot of originality and uniqueness. Most humanities authors would like to claim credit for an idea or position and would not like to share that credit with another author, especially if the other author did not play a part in formulating the position or originating the idea. As a result, majority of authorships in some humanities disciplines are sole authorships. So in the humanities, you have a lot of writers appending only their names to their publications. And that's because the nature of the humanities, favors uniqueness. You do something on your own, and if you wanted to do it with someone else, you people could be stuck in an argument here and there. Two of you may not be exactly driven by the same ideology. Remember that ideology is important in humanities, but ideology is nothing in the natural sciences. You are dealing with inanimate objects. You don't need ideology. Okay. Now let me say something about the ethics of collaboration. Collaborate if and when you can, but collaborate only from the beginning of a project when the idea has just been formed. This ensures you actually collaborate. It is unethical to collaborate when someone has already finished writing a manuscript and then all that is left is to just add your name. So one of the problems with that is that what was written may not bear any resemblance to what the person whose name has been added has been doing. So for instance, someone who specializes in communitarianism can write an article in communitarianism and then want to add the name of someone else who has never done anything in communitarianism. And then when assessors are assessing that publication for promotion or for something else, they discover that the person whose name appears second or whatever does not bear any resemblance to that topic. That is, has not done anything about that topic. So it raises red flags. So collaborate, but you have to make sure that you actually collaborated, not that you added one another's names. Prof. Adika is going to speak more on that in one of his classes at the end of the semester. Then the second one, which is good if you want to be a very good publisher. Ask colleagues to review your manuscripts before submission to journals and publishers. Now, from my experience, both within and outside my department and the university, it's not easy because your colleagues may also be working on some other things. But you will more easily get reviews from those you are already collaborating with because they have had collaborations with you. And they are probably expecting more collaborations with you. Now, the third principle, concentrate on gilt-edged journals. By gilt-edged, we mean journals that have existed for like 60, 50, 60, 100 years. There are some journals that have existed for a very, very long time. There are journals that were established in the early 1990s, and up till today, they are still running. Meanwhile, there are many other journals that didn't exist up to 3 or 4 years. Someone starts a journal, after 3 years, he gets tired, and that's the end. Or someone begins to run a journal, he runs it throughout his life, he gets old and weak, he doesn't appoint successors, and there's no one, the journal just dies. So many journals die in the laptops of their creators. But there are some journals that have existed for 30 years, 50 years, 100 years, even 150 years. We now call those journals gilt-edged. Now, the longer the life of a journal, the more prestigious it gets. The longer the life of a journal, the more prestigious and respected it gets. If you are publishing if you are submitting an application for promotion, and then you published an article in a journal that has volume 96 or volume 100 and something, that's a very big boost to your application. But if your application contains articles published in a journal that has volume 1, which means the journal was created just that year, or volume 2 or 3, a journal that has existed 2 or 3 years, it sends signals about where you are, what you are capable of, and those things. The older a journal gets, the more the reviewers it acquires, and the more stringent its conditions for publishing. Now, publishing in these places will take more time because they will reject your submission for a minimum of about 2 years before you get a hang of. So now, when I wanted to start to publish in these well-respected journals, it took me about 2 years to get the hang of publishing in them. You send articles to them, they keep rejecting and rejecting and rejecting. But the fortunate part is that as they are rejecting, you are learning why they are rejecting. So the rejection, the processes of rejection is itself an educative process where you learn first of all, what they don't want, and then you also begin to learn what they want, what they expect of you, the standards of research. Most rejections are based on research that was not properly done, claims that are not very defendable, and things like that. Now look at some of these journals, publishers. Some of these publishers have existed for centuries. Wiley is in the UK, Routledge the same thing. Springer is the biggest publisher in Germany. They are both in Germany and the Netherlands. Then Sage is there, Elsevier. And then another category of publishers are the university presses. Many universities have their presses, and some university presses have existed for a very long time. I remember that the University of Ghana press was there for some years, then it packed up, and then after some time it was revived. So it gets revived, it sleeps, revives, sleeps, revives, and then it just goes on and on. But some of these universities, their presses have existed non-stop for years, even for centuries. So like I told you, the longer the life of a publisher, the more prestigious the publisher, the more respected, because the longer you live, the more people publish with you, and then the more information is circulated about you. So now these university presses, Cambridge University Press, Oxford University Press, University of Edinburgh Press, University of Chicago Press, and all these presses, Now let's look at some of our own publishers. You have, in Africa, you have University of South Africa Press. We call it the UNISA Press. So University of South Africa has a big press that has been publishing quite a lot of work in the continent. Now, when you send a manuscript to University of South Africa Press, the editor currently is Sharon Bushaf. Bushaf Sharon, a lady that handles submissions and forwards them to the University Senate. The University Senate would go through your title and abstract, and then they'll have to vote to decide whether it should go for review, external review. If the voting in the Senate is positive, then it goes for review. If the review is negative, that's the end of it. If it is positive, then it comes back, and then it goes through the rest of the process. So that's for University of South Africa Press. Then you have another press in South Africa called NISC Press. They are also doing well. Now, publishing is not yet flourishing in West Africa in terms of having subject editors and disciplinary reviewers. What we have in West Africa are printing machines. You buy a printing machine and you simply start printing. Mostly they print flyers, posters for burials, weddings, and all those things. Occasionally, you can bring a book manuscript, and then they will print something. They also print, some of them print the textbooks that are used in primary, secondary schools, and those, But in terms of printing tertiary advanced research, they don't have publishing officials. That is, they don't have editors, they don't have reviewers, they don't have any such things. If you publish in those places, the university will say that it is a self-publication. You published yourself. Self-publications are not accepted. In fact, if you submit it for promotion, you'll be laughed at. So you don't want to mess yourself up by going in that direction. Well, the fortunate thing is that if you have self-published or you've published with those vanity machines in Accra, Kufuridua, and wherever they are, you can still publish it elsewhere, because I'm sure you didn't sign a copyright agreement with any of them. They are not publishers, they are just printing machines. So because they are not publishers, they don't have anything like copyright agreements. They just printed something for you. They don't even keep track of what they have printed. So they are not aware whether it was published elsewhere. Now, yeah, so we have sub-Sahara publishers. They have an office in somewhere around, what do you call it? Very close to Kaneshi. But they also claim they are based in Legon. Now, they can send your manuscript to external reviewers at your request, but normally they don't. I've published there. Now, let's look at the reason for the success of Western orders. Now, universities expect, our university here in Legon expects you to publish in Western journals and publishers. If you don't publish there, you can't become a professor. That's the truth. Publish only in Africa and you can't go beyond senior lecturer. You have to digest that so that you begin to maneuver your way and see what you can do. You can publish in South Africa, that's fine, but the geographical spread of your publication is important. You need to be publishing all over the world. You need to have publications coming from Africa, Asia, Europe, the Americas, these 4 continents. And then you are ready for a professorial position. Otherwise, there's no deal. So please get that information straight from the beginning. Now, there's nothing extraordinary. Now, before I begin, let me make a remark that we find it difficult publishing in those places because, especially the Western publishers and journals, because they They reject manuscripts a lot. Now, and then you see their own writers publishing there. There's nothing extraordinary about publishing in what are seen as a prestigious global publishers. All you need is patience, perseverance, and enough time to know what their expectations are. Now, the Western authors who publish in those places did not receive an extra training in school, or a training different from what we have received. Why they publish there is that in their case, they have no choice. It's just a part of teaching in the university in the global north. If you are teaching in a Western university and you don't publish, you will fall out. First of all, you'll be on temporary contract until you become an associate prof. If you don't make it to associate prof and you continue to remain in the lower ranks, the university has a maximum number of times they will renew your contract. I think they renew contracts twice or three times. After that, the law forbids them from renewing. If by the third time of renewal, your contract renewal, you are still not ready for promotion, or you've not gotten your promotion to associate prof, when the maximum number of renewals is reached, then that's it. You are out of the system. So they are forced to learn to publish in their own publishers and journals. And they have to sit down and learn it. The fortunate part is that if you do so, you learn how to do it. So it's just psychology. Western authors did not have to invest themselves with patience, perseverance, and those virtues were forced on them by their own circumstance. Now, in our own case, you just need to decide consciously to invest yourself with those virtues, which is psychologically more difficult. But it is doable because some of us have done it. Now, these are the places I've published. They are right now in my CV. I just copied and pasted. I've published in Cambridge University Press, one publication, Oxford University Press, one publication, University of South Africa Press, it will come out soon, Palgrave Macmillan, Wiley, Routledge, Springer, Sage. Now, then I've published in roughly 20 journals. These are the journals, So I like to list the number of journals I've published because variety sells you as a scholar. Now, to build your name as a scholar, always try each time to publish in a different journal and with a different publisher. However, you can publish in a journal up to 3 times before you move on, particularly if it is a reputable journal and it is receptive to your research. Some people in this university even argue that it can be more than 3 articles because it's there is no nepotism in such journals, and your article still needs to go through stringent reviews. However, the worst mistake is to publish repeatedly in a low quality journal, journals that accept articles that don't make serious contributions. Now, how do you know which journals to patronize? I would advise you concentrate on the Scopus indexed journals. The university has subscribed to the Scopus database. You can access the database with the university's internet server, but not with any other server outside the university. Now, Scopus is a Dutch company that has collated the majority of the credible journals in the world. A credible journal is any journal that uses blind peer review for assessing the quality of manuscripts it considers for publishing. Now, in some journals, the editor-in-chief doesn't even know who has submitted what. It is only, now the law makes it, empowers only the, the editorial assistant. Now, we have editors-in-chief, we have editors, we have managing editors, we have editorial assistants. Now, right now, for some journals, the editorial assistants are the ones that receive submissions. The editor-in-chief is not even supposed to know who submitted what. It is only the editorial assistant that knows. And in most cases, the editorial assistant is just a student or maybe a research assistant. And then the editorial assistant sends it to an editor, and then who decides whether to reject it or send it for external review. If she doesn't think the article can make it through external review, she might reject it. We call it a desk rejection. If, on the other hand, she thinks that it stands a chance in external reviews, she will send it for external reviews and then tell the editorial assistant to tell who submitted it that it has gone for external review. So it has been arranged in such a way that those that matter in the journal are not aware of the authors until the last moment, if the submission has made it through several stages of reviews and it is going to be published. Then at that point, the editor-in-chief may get to know who is behind the manuscript. Now, apart from Scopus journals, another category of journals you can target in your career are the university journals. The university does not promote only based on Scopus indexed publications. Any publication in a journal owned by a department, school, or college is fine. For example, a journal of the College of Humanities of Ghana, University of Ghana. We have the Legon Journal of the Humanities. Then we have a journal of the School of Arts. Then we have journals belonging to the business school. And if, for instance, you have a journal that is run by the Institute of African Studies, then that's a good platform. Or a journal owned by a department, such as the Ghana Journal of Theology, owned by the Religion Department, or the Ghana Journal of Linguistics, owned by the Linguistics Department, and so on. So university journals, once you certify that a journal is published by a university or an organ of a university, then that's the second good category. So category 1, you have Scopus indexed journals. Category 2, you have university journals. But we have the third category, professional association journals. So also accepted without much context are publications in journals owned by professional associations, such as the Kenya Philosophical Society. Now, my paper was my manuscript was published just 2 days ago by a journal called the International Journal of Philosophy. It is run by the Philippine Philosophical Society. So that's the Association of Philosophy Professionals in the Philippines. So they have this journal, and then this is the 4th article they are publishing for me. Then you have the Kenya Philosophical Society. Now I'm just giving examples with philosophy journals. So those of you in the other humanities disciplines, you have to do your research and find out the journals. First of all, find out the professional associations in your disciplines. For instance, in political science, you should have an association of political scientists in Ghana. You would have it in Nigeria, you have it in other African countries and other countries around the world. Now look at this list: the Kenya Philosophical Society, the Philippine Philosophical Association, you have the Philosophical Society of Southern Africa, you have the American Philosophical Association, you have the Canadian Philosophical Association, you have the African Studies. Some of you in African Studies should be familiar with the African Studies Association. Now, in general, national professional associations in different disciplines produce good journals because all the members of the associations are potential reviewers. Now, the advantage of having journals run by, of submitting to journals run by professional associations is that in the first place, the professional associations are associations of professionals. All or each of those professionals is a potential reviewer. So they have a very big stock of reviewers. They can send it to any member of the association to review. So a professional association has the widest stock of reviewers, to run a journal. In most cases, when you submit to journals run by professional associations, they send it to 3 reviewers, and within a month, the review reports are in. When I submit to the South African Journal of Philosophy, which is run by the Philosophical Society of South Africa, I get my review reports in just a month or 5 weeks. The reports are in. The same thing with when I submit to the journal run by the Canadian Philosophical Association, and then even the one owned by the American Philosophical Association, and then the Australasian Journal of Philosophy, and even the one in the Philippines. The only exception might be the one in Philippines, which takes a little bit longer. So in general, national professional associations in different disciplines produce good journals because all the members of the association are potential reviewers. They have the biggest pool of reviewers to draw from, and most of their journals are indexed on Scopus. So we have counted Scopus journals, university journals, professional association journals. Now, so just those 3 categories alone will give you all the journals you need. Now, many professional association journals are published by the gilt-edged presses. So targeting one is often targeting the other. Now, so I'll just skip this. Those in philosophy, please, you can also note the Journal of the Indian Council of Philosophical Research. So India has their own professional association journals. Okay. So using Scopus. Unless you are personally subscribed to Scopus, you can only access Scopus with a university server. So you can search for journals to see if they are on Scopus. Now, the advantage of publishing in a Scopus journal is that you have this index that will be building up. And when you submit it along with your promotion application, it makes a very good argument for your promotion. Now, you can also search for articles to see if they are there. Most importantly, you can type in the name of an author to see how many Scopus Index publications she has. Now, so let me stop share and see if I can get my, if I can get a hold of my Scopus document. Yeah, so this is my Scopus document. At this point, I'll share it so that yeah, so this is my Scopus document. This is what it looks like. And then this is the Skyva. Now, but before we go to Skyva, let me go back to the slide about Skyva. Skyva is an appendage or a department in Scopus that collates and arranges the research of faculties in different universities to see how different universities are doing in terms of research. So there you'll see how each university is performing, the total number of Scopus Index publications, the number of citations, the citation index for the entire university and for each other, and then so on. So there you see how you rate in relation to your own colleagues in the arts and humanities. So you click on others, and then under the click, you click arts and humanities, and then you see how the humanity faculty are doing, and then they are ranking as well. Now let me see. Okay, so this is the document I got when I logged into Skyval, and I went to the arts and humanities, and then I saw how we were doing. We have hundreds of names here. They are all ranked according to. Now this is for publications in the last 5 years. Is this 5 years or 3 years? So it usually has a period. Now 2015 to 2020. So that this is the period. This is the periodization. 2015 to 2020. This is how the writers in the humanities have been faring on Scopus. Okay. Now let's talk about predatory journals. Avoid any journal that charges you a fee for review. Reviewers are not normally paid. And before I move on, let me just make a remark. if the university is assessing your publications and there are publications in predatory journals, it kind of stains your application for promotion with a color that is not very, very nice, So in fact, what you suffer from publishing in just one predatory journal is more than what you suffer by trying to publish it in a journal that doesn't have a bad name. So before you publish in a journal, you need to search for that journal online, read around the journal. You will also see online discussions about each journal. Go through what people are saying online about a particular journal. Find out if there are accusations of being predatory. If you see any such accusations, then just leave that journal alone. Now, but this is not to say that any journal that charges a fee is a predatory journal. On the other hand, most journals charge a huge fee for open access publishing, but you normally have the choice to opt for subscription access. Now, most of the publishers and journals I have cited or have published in, normally they can publish your article, and then those who want to read will have to pay a subscription fee. For instance, if I want to read an article, I Google it online, I come to the page where it has been displayed. I might see that I need to pay a sum of money to download it. So that's subscription. Now that's how most of these journals make their money. If you don't want your readers to pay anything, then you may have to pay a bulk sum. For some journals, it's up to $3,000. For some, it's up to $5,000. Now, so use Scopus and Skyva periodically. Now, I'm saying it only because we work at the University of Ghana. That happens to be the focus of the university in evaluating research. If you were at the University of Cape Coast, you might not need to worry much about these databases. Now, publishing in a journal. It is usually difficult to initially get your article accepted by a very prestigious journal. In many cases, your submissions are rejected for a long time. So I took the decision to start publishing in such journals in 2011, but my first publication that rated highly 2013. So my friend Prof. Mays had a similar experience. When he wanted to start publishing, he wasn't getting any acceptances. It took a very long time before he started getting them. Now, the problem is that there are invisible norms. Publishing in international journals requires knowledge of some norms that are not visible. You learn these norms as you deal with these journals, and they are not taught in schools. Some of us learned them painfully by making mistakes. Muhammad Karim, your microphone is on, but I've put it off. Now, so please, remember the factor of originality. The most common reason for rejection is that the manuscript has nothing new to contribute to existing knowledge. So originality, but I want to give you some ideas about originality. I compare originality to the emergence of new ideas that arises from an accumulation of mental activities. The best way to arrive at original ideas is to keep tinkering with your work, with those things you are doing, so that as you cultivate the habit of reflecting about your research. Now ask yourself, what do you normally think about when you go home, or when you leave your office, or when you leave the classroom? A few days ago, I was asking myself, what do I normally think about? when I go for a walk, or when I'm making my breakfast, when I wake up in the morning, what do I think about? And then the answer was that I mostly think about those things that are happening around my family, my village, national politics, how two political parties are out maneuvering one another and those things. And then I decided that, look, at such moments, I'll be reflecting on my professional work. You know, those things I'm researching, I want to be thinking about them when I'm going for a walk, when I'm making my breakfast, when I'm doing my exercise, when I'm taking my bath. I want to be thinking about those more serious things. That is how you arrive at original ideas. If you don't have that kind of lifestyle, you wouldn't be arriving at. You don't arrive by original ideas by sitting down in your office, opening your laptop, reading some articles, thinking about what to write. That's not when they come. They come at very unexpected moments. So that's just a tip, And when they come, they look like gifts from God. In fact, my biggest articles occurred to me when I was taking my bath. Almost all of them when I was taking my bath. Okay. So to discover original ideas is to invent and innovate. Get used to the idea of inventing and innovating. It is not only Europeans that invent and innovate. Any human being has the capacity to invent and innovate. Let me give you an example. Look at the business of 419, the business of advanced fee fraud. What do you think that fraudsters are doing? Fraudsters are innovating and inventing. They keep innovating and inventing tricks that will get money out of people. So quite unfortunately, many of our youths are inventing and innovating in negative things. That's the idea. If you can do what they are doing in your own profession, I'm telling you, you'll be a star. So begin to get used to the idea of inventing and innovating. It is something you can do. It is not. A special talent that only a few people have. Anyone with a brain can do it. So you need to begin to see yourself as an inventor in order to do this well. And many of us this side of the world, we don't show enthusiasm in this direction. Of course, because our elders don't normally talk about it, And a psychologically undedicated person cannot originate a lot of ideas. It requires keeping the problem within the consciousness of the mind, even whilst you are doing other things daily. Okay, now let me give you an idea about how originality plays out in your journal article submissions. Immediately, reviewers see significant originality. They write expressions like the author is onto something. And once they notice originality in your work, journals are willing to forgive many other mistakes, seeing them as problems to be solved in order to publish your manuscript. So there's a basic difference to how journals see your mistakes, including typographical mistakes, if you have original ideas and if you do not. If your paper is not original enough, they will just dismiss it. They will say it lacks originality. There are so many mistakes and so forth and so forth, and it is rejected. But if they see some originality in your work, if they see some promise, then they will say, yes, this man is, this writer is onto something, but there are some errors. They will list the errors. They want you to work on the errors. When they say you should work on so and so errors, it implies that they are willing to publish it. So all you need to do is to get down, start working on the errors, and if possible, you can improve on your original contribution. So those are the signs of whether you are going to publish or not. Now, The problem with originality is that in many cases, what you think is original may already have appeared in a literature the reviewers have seen and you have not seen. So sometimes you submit a manuscript to a journal and then a reviewer will say, this argument is not original. It's already in the literature. Sometimes the reviewer will not even care to tell you which particular manuscript or literature has that idea already. It is left for you to go and begin to search and see where it is. So you need to always do an extensive literature review on any topic or debate you wish to contribute to in your discipline. And whenever you want to contribute to a particular topic, Prof. Adika is going to, he talked about this in his first class. You need to see whether anyone else has even considered that idea and put it in writing. If that has happened, then it's no longer original. You have to do so. You have to contribute something else. And that's the crux of publishing. Whether what you are contributing has been contributed by someone else, or whether you are the first person that is presenting it. Now, getting the latest literature is difficult in sub-Saharan Africa, even online. So you need to forge several links that are aimed at getting them. One of my common practices is to read the bibliography of books and articles to see other publications that the author used. Now, for subscribed journals, you can use the university's article request service at the BAM library. Now, in many cases, you might want a journal article online, but you can't get it because you need to pay. Maybe you need to pay $35 to have access to it. What you do is to go to the university's BAM library online, go to their article request service and request it. More than 90% of the time, they will give it to you because the university has a way of getting those articles. If it is for books, you have no option than to buy them online. I buy most of my books from Amazon, eBay. Now, for you to become a respectable scholar, it is only possible by producing original ideas. The best way to do this is to master the art of securing a niche somewhere in your discipline. For example, in my discipline, philosophy, there are topics where original ideas are difficult or impossible, such as the problem of evil. There was a student who wanted to write a dissertation about the problem of evil. But the problem with that topic is that all the possible opinions, about the problem of evil have been adduced over the years. So it is next to impossible to see what else you can say about it. So there are certain topics that by their very nature are difficult to contribute to. Some of them because they have lasted for a long time. So a lot of academics have had opportunities to contribute to them. So the more contributions are made to a topic, the less likely you'll be able to have something to say. But there are some other topics that are, still emerging. And so not as many people have participated in discussing or contributing to those topics. In which case, there are more chances that anyone who chances on those topics can contribute to them. So topics differ according to how fertile they are for contributions. So it depends on the nature of the topic area, its age, and the amount of debate that has taken place on it. Now, let me give you an example with my personal experience. When you come to my discipline, philosophy, particularly African philosophy, I surveyed the entire topography of the discipline. And then I saw that I needed to find a new and emerging area where I'll have the space to make a lot of contributions, areas that have not been discussed much. And I found one such area. It is called consensual democracy. One of the professors in my discipline, Kwesi Wiredu, had lamented the evils of the multi-party system in Africa. He was saying we imported this multi-party system from Europe and it is giving problems. He listed the problems it is causing, and then he advocated that we should go back to considering the democracy by consensus that was being practiced in our traditional societies. When I read that publication, it was very exciting. And then I read some responses to that publication. At the time I was encountering that topic, there were only about how many responses to that publication? There were only about just 5 responses. So that meant that it was a relatively unexplored topic. And I immediately took position. Since then, I have published up to 25 highly rated and respected papers on that topic. That wouldn't have been possible if I was hibernating in older topics, such as communitarianism, and some of those other topics in philosophy that have lasted for quite a long time and have been saturated by so many discussions and those things. So this is just another tip I'm giving you. If you want to be a scholar, you need to be moving to the peripheries. You need to be moving to the fringes. Be looking for relatively less explored topics. You need to read around topics and see where people have not really gone to start, contributing to. And then you need to ask yourself if you are in a position to contribute to those topics. If you feel confident, then you can go ahead. So much of my originality has come from the underexplored nature of my specialization. I chose a specialization that many people did not choose on time. And apart from that, I keep hunting for underexplored topics, or underexplored aspects of old topics. Old topics could also have underexplored aspects. So you need to be topic mobile until you find a easy area where you can settle, and then you can make a lot of contributions. Pakweku, your mic is on. Now let's talk about publishing your PhD work. Right now, most of you are looking for topics. You're about to begin your PhD research. At the end of your research, it will be expected that you came up with something that is publishable. Okay. So by the time you are rounding up your PhD, it will be expected that you would like to publish. And then the question that arises is whether you want to publish your PhD as a single book, or as you want to publish them chapter by chapter as journal articles or chapters of people's chapter books. Now, the suggestion is that you should publish them first as articles, journal articles, and then later on you can publish the work as a book. Now, these are the reasons. First of all, universities need articles from you more than they need books. And of course, they reward articles more. In the current promotion guidelines, we have guidelines for promotion. An article was given 10 points, and then a book was given 20 points. So that means that an article has half of the points of a book. But an article is the equivalent of one chapter of a book. And there's no serious book that has less than 5 chapters. So an article should actually be having about 1/5 of the points of a book. But in reality, it has half of the points of a book. So it means that in Legon, a book is the technical equivalent of 2 articles. So you're better off publishing your work as articles, journal articles, than as books or chapter books. So that's the first reason. Second is that you can obtain permission to republish several articles as a book. So if, for instance, you have published, Pakweku, please, why do you keep unmuting your mic? Pakweku. Okay. So, yeah, so the first point is that articles will give you more points. Then the second one is that even after you have published articles from your PhD work, you can still gather them together and make them a book by obtaining permission from the different journals. And then the third one, which is very important, is that your book will be more popular if people have read your articles as an antecedent. So if you are putting together a book and the book is released and people are already familiar with the number of the chapters, then that book is going to sell. It's going to sell like wildfire. And then the fourth point is that articles attain their highest quality when they go through the stringent reviews of a journal. So if you want to publish chapters of your PhD work as journal, each of those journal articles, each of those manuscripts is going to be thoroughly reviewed, improved, developed. So publishing a book that is a collection of several journal articles is to publish a high quality book. Now, publishing in chapter books. Apart from journal articles, we have chapter books. You can publish your essay as part of a book that someone or some people are putting together. We call it a chapter book. And it is good if the editor is well known. Now, remember that journals have their rankings, and their rankings are based on their performance and the length of their lives. On the other hand, you have chapter books. The reputation of a chapter book would invariably depend on the reputation of the person putting it together. So it is fine if the editor is well known and you are publishing up to 2 or 3 chapters, in the same book. Now, the review process is less stringent. The disadvantage is that book chapters are less visible compared to journal articles. So each chapter in a book is less likely to be indexed independently to appear separately online. So a book is a book. There are only few publishers of books that can publish each chapter of the book separately, like an article online. Springer does it. I don't know if Sage does it. So just a few of them. Otherwise, it remains inside the book. You can't see it unless you buy the book. So chapter books are much less visible compared to journal articles. And then most universities prefer you to publish in journal articles to improve the university ranking. So journal articles play a more crucial role compared to books in determining university rankings, because journals already have rankings, and the ranking of a journal is a point in addition to the point generated by the article you published in the journal. So it is the points your article has combined with the points that has been given to the journal for its rank, and then those things affect university rankings. You may favor book chapters as a full professor who doesn't need any more promotions. So now, people who are older in the discipline, they can publish in chapter books as much as they want because they've already gotten their promotions. But if you are still trying to get your promotion, then you don't need to publish in too many book chapters. You have to show up on more on journal articles. So you should have like 60% journal articles, 40% book chapters. But just make sure that the book chapters are not more than the journal articles. That will send a very negative signal to the assessors of your promotion application. Selecting journals. Knowing the journal for publishing is as important as knowing what to write. There's this professor in South Africa that told me this. We were at plus 233 down just beside, where is it? Somewhere down at Accra, close to, it's close to the presidential, on your way to Nkrumah Circle. That bar called plus 233. We were taking he came to the department, and we, after, academic activities, one of our PhD master students at the time drove us there to relax, and take some kebab. And then when we were there, he mentioned that knowing the journal for publishing is as important as knowing what to write. If you know what to write and you don't know which journal to send it to, you've not achieved anything, You need to learn to read the objectives of various journals. Most of the journals you'll be publishing in are journals that you don't know, and have not been introduced to you by people. Read some of the articles to know what kind of research they accept. Find out if there's a resemblance between the journal's posture and the objective of your paper. Those are ways of trying to save yourself time, because when you submit something to a journal and after 3 months they reject it, it is 3 months your career has 3 months have been taken out of your career. So you need to reduce the time you lose to journal rejections. Consider the journal's global ranking. There is this impact factor. It is calculated in point something. You can have 1 point this, 0 point that. Consider its rejection rate. If you want to submit to a journal that has 98% rejection rate, there are some journals with 98% rejection rate and 2% acceptance rate. That's a very tough place to submit your manuscript. You should already know that that journal is under a lot of pressure, So submitting there is a very dicey. If your time is limited, if you have run out of time, you need your promotion before your contract runs out, then you need to advise yourself and ask yourself whether you really want to gamble with your time with such journals. But it should not discourage you. The advantage of dealing with such journals is that eventually you learn to publish there. And if you learn to publish there, then automatically you'll be on top of your profession, because people will have to be looking up to you. Okay. Now, remember that your ambition determines where you publish. If you hope to retire at the University of Cape Coast, you can publish mostly in Ghana or Nigeria. But if you hope to be considered for a position in Europe and North America, you need to publish in their best platforms. Some people go from here to UK Some people get appointment letters in US whilst they are in Ghana, and then they leave. It all depends on what is on their CV. Then if you hope to remain at the University of Ghana, you need to publish all over the world to be a full professor. I've already said that. The geographical spread of your publication is a serious issue for Legon leadership. For instance, you can go and check where the current and immediate past vice chancellors have been published. I think that will give you all the tips you need about how to chart your research paths. Now, so I've already talked about desk rejections. You submit to a journal. If they don't want to saddle their reviewer with it, they will reject it. The editors will reject it and tell you one story or the other. We call it a desk rejection. It is a sort of gatekeeping or initial screening. Most journals that are not owned by professional associations have more desk rejection rates compared to those owned by professional associations. Now, the advantage of submitting to journals run by professional associations is that they don't have a lot of desk rejection rates simply because they have a lot of reviewers. They have hundreds and hundreds of reviewers. So once you submit, they have someone to send it to. But just imagine a journal that is not run by a professional association. A journal run in a department in a university. The person running the journal doesn't know where to send it to. He probably doesn't want to send it to his colleagues because they are busy teaching. And he doesn't know a lot of people outside his department or university to send it to. And then you submit an article, he looks at all the articles he has received. He will just select only about 2 or 3 for review, because he doesn't really want to waste the time of whoever reviewer he's going to disturb. So it is very advantageous to deal with journals run by professional associations, because they are more likely to send your article for external review. They are more likely to give you more detailed feedback on your manuscript and your research. Now, the European journals, are, unfortunately to say, are more disciplined in their handling of author submissions. Editors respond within a week, indicating whether they have decided to reject it or send it to reviewers for review. And then if it goes for review, the traditional period is 3 months, and the traditional number of reviewers is 3. 2 of the 3 reviewers need to accept your paper with minor or major revisions before your paper is processed for publishing. The entire process takes an average of 1 year. Now, sub-Saharan publishing ethics. Let's see what we have in sub-Saharan Africa. First of all, Southeast Africa, Malawi and some of its neighbors. Some of the Southern African states, Malawi, Botswana, and those places. I have tried to publish in those countries, but I never got a response. You send a paper to those publishers, they never respond. At times you begin to doubt if those publishers actually exist. Then the West African journals, with the exception of outstanding universities like University of Ghana, some others might notify you only when they have already published your article, often without review or even proofreading. I sent an article to University of Lagos sometime in 2007 or 2008. They didn't respond. I even sent an email asking them, please, did you receive my paper? No response in 2008. And then in 2014 or 2013, they sent me a message that my article has been published. And I asked them, what do you mean? Published without any proofreading, no review report. They sent the paper to me by mail. I received it by mail. I checked the front page of the journal. That journal was published in 2013 or 2014, but it was written on the front page that this this is volume so and so, published in 1982. I immediately sent an email to the editor telling him, please, why is it written 1982? He said it is the printer's devil. And he was even angry. So you get those kinds of issues. I sent an article to one other journal called African Research Review. I didn't hear from them for 1.5 years. And then suddenly one day they sent me an email that they are just about to publish it. I should pay a small sum. And then I quickly responded, please, I've already published it. And she became very angry, sending me a highly acidic email. You didn't respond for 1.5 years. You didn't even notify me that you received it. Then one day you say you want to publish it. And I tell you, look, I submitted it already elsewhere because you never responded. So these days, when I submit to a journal and I ask after 2 weeks, please, did you receive my manuscript? They say no. And then maybe after 2 months, I ask again, please, did you receive it? They said no. Then the third one I will do is that I will write an email so that it will be a legal tender. I will say, look, you have not yet acknowledged receipt. So I am withdrawing this paper and this email will serve as my witness. Yeah. Well, you get these kinds of indiscipline. So unfortunately, we are not dedicated to running these things. None of us appears to have the time, and then unfortunately we just keep relying on Western journals. Someone will say, why Western journals? Why not African journals? And I'll ask him, which African journals are you talking about? Is it the ones that will not acknowledge receipt for 1.5 years, 2 years?
Yeah.
And then they will just publish it one day without your permission. And publish it with all kinds of typographical errors.
Yeah.
When you see it, you'll be so embarrassed that you will not even want to step out of your house.
That's dangerous.
So it is a problem that needs to be fixed. Now I'm talking to the future generation of academics. Some of you will become heads of department, professors, and those things. Some of you might have opportunities to run journals. If you want to run a journal in your life, you need to think about how the journal is going to last beyond your death. You need to think about who is going to run it after you. Whilst you are running it, you should be thinking about this longevity. Those issues are very important. You know, there's this guy who was running the journal published by the Kenyan Philosophical Association, Reginald Oduor. The journal was named Thought and Practice. That's the name of the journal. He ran it for several years. I was reviewing his articles constantly. He sends me articles for reviews. I published there up to, is it 3 times or twice? And because I've published that number of times with him, he sends me other manuscripts for review. Each time I receive it, I do the review and give it to him within a month. I don't delay. You know, each time there was an email where he said that he will never forget the kind of dedication and support he received from me and those things. You know, so but when he stepped down, he handed the journal over to a colleague in his department. I sent an article to the colleague, no response. That was when? I sent that article to him in 2016. An article in 2016 to his colleague who was made the new editor of the journal, no response. 2016 till 2021 July, no response even as of this minute. What kind of indiscipline is that? And we are talking about his personal email, so he must have seen it. It's not a journal email where you say, okay, you forgot to check a journal email for maybe 1 month or something. And even if we are talking about the journal email, there's no excuse not to check a journal email if you are the one running the journal.
Yeah, that's true.
So that publication Okay, so now let me see what I wrote here. Usually 2 years after you submitted or have forgotten about the submission. With the West African journals, with the exception of outstanding universities, some others might notify you only when they have already published your article without review or even proofreading. So such publications are technically useless. Immediately you receive it, your biggest desire is to publish it again. Now, disadvantages of small journals. We call them small journals because they have not made any name. A journal that has existed for 2 years is a small journal. Most small journals are lazy, inconsistent, and prone to mistakes. There's also a problem of continuity. Many of them are one-man journals, which will die on the laptop of their founders. But by contrast, majority of European journals are approaching 100 years. Some have crossed 100 years, and they keep getting better because of their continuity policies. So we need to build continuity into our culture of doing things. In the meantime, we just concentrate on well-established journals. You have no choice because your university is battling for ranking. If you don't have ranking, you can't get international students, you can't get grants, you can't get nothing. You are just dead. Now, the highest ranking journals receive thousands of submissions. Even with a rejection rate of 98%, there's a huge backlog of accepted articles. There are some journals that accept your article for publication. It comes out online as what they call first online, without a volume, or they've not attached it to a volume or issue. And then it needs to wait for probably 1 or 2 or even 3 years until it's 10, because already there's a long list of articles to assign to volumes and all that. Now let's talk about formatting your manuscripts, just a few tips. So go for short and attention-grabbing titles instead of long paragraph-like ones trying to capture your actual argument. The abstract is the first impression of your paper, so spend time improving it. Mention the problem, which is a niche, and what you want to do about it. Now, a typical article, a typical abstract is one that talks about, that starts by mentioning a problem. And it should be clear to any reviewer that the problem you mentioned with your first sentence is a problem that no one has addressed. And then, of course, what follows is how you intend to address it. That's all. Immediately, a reviewer sees that, he knows that this paper is a good candidate for publication. And then he would spend the rest of his time, he'll bring out time to read it. If he sees the abstract and he doesn't see a niche, a clear niche or vacuum that you are trying to fill even from the abstract, then he becomes discouraged. He begins to wonder why. He will allocate his time to going through the manuscript. So those are some of the troubles you'll be receiving. You might send a manuscript to a journal and it says for 6 months, 1 year, you've not heard anything. That's just it. These are factors responsible. And then your introduction should state your research questions and how you want to answer them. Mention what is new in relation to the literature. You have to be explicit on that. Make all your clarifications there. Briefly explain how the major sections of the paper will be answering your research questions. So introduction is not a place to present your evidence and arguments. Just mention that there are arguments and evidence to buttress your position. And then the reader wants to see from the introduction if she should read your paper to see those arguments and pieces of evidence. Don't mention in the introduction something that is not in the paper. Okay. So if you are working on a local issue or an issue that has to do with your locality and you are aiming to publish in an international journal, show the international audience why they should take interest in your work. What is in it for them? How will they benefit from it? For instance, you want to, you are looking at an issue in Ghana or in Accra, and then you send it to a journal in the Philippines or South Africa or Kenya. And then a Kenya reviewer will be asking, why do I want to read this? What is in it for me? In spite of the fact that it is a local issue, there needs to be some resonances from that issue that make it internationally relevant. It is your duty as a writer to make such points explicit. You know. Now, publishing takes money, and editors are only concerned about what they think their audience are interested in or could take interest in, which is where your work comes in. Now, so remember that people are bearing the cost of your publication. You know, so start from what the reader is familiar with and progress from there. Take the reader from the known to the unknown. Anticipate objections to your arguments and respond to those objections in your paper. Now, it saves you a lot of time and it saves you a lot of rejections. If you don't anticipate objections to your arguments and to your proposals and then deal with those objections in your paper, then the reviewer will be raising those objections, those very same objections, and then using them as an excuse for rejecting the paper. So that's the politics. You either raise those objections yourself or you have others raise them to your detriment. Okay. Now, look at this. This is a soft spot that I need to mention because a lot of people go astray on this issue. If you cannot answer an objection well, admit it, and then state why your paper still merits attention despite the objection, and why the objection may best be answered in another research. Reviewers are human beings. They know you are not God, you know. So it is good they see your humility when the humility is warranted. If you can't answer an objection well, they will be happy that you raised it in the first place, in spite of the fact that you know you can't answer it well. That's something that also impresses people. If you can't answer it well, suggest about which platforms it can be answered. You can say it needs further research, you know, things like that. Your conclusions should summarize the points you've made and what may need to be done in a further research. The conclusion is not for making new points, so it should be short. Now, let's talk about getting feedbacks on your paper. Once you finish writing your paper, you've done only between 50% or to 10% of the job. You know, you are likely to generate 3, 4, or 5 other drafts or revisions before that paper is publishable. So most of the papers I send to journals, you know, they are only the first of up to 3 or 4 other drafts that, you know, before it is publication time. So to minimize this, some European authors rewrite their paper an average of 4 times before submitting to a journal. I remember one professor at London School of Economics, Catherine, she was in Accra sometime. We were discussing, you know, we're in a vehicle going somewhere. I think we were going to Villaggio, that hotel at, and then on the way, I asked her, what are you working on now? She told me she was working on an article on something, and I asked her, how long have you been working on that paper? She said 7 months. You know, I said, why is it taking 7 months? She said right now she has rewritten it 4 times. You know, so that's how serious the business of writing is. You don't take writing lightly. It's not something you write once and then you send your very first draft to a journal. It could be attacked, and you could even get insults from frustrated reviewers. You know. I remember someone sent an article to a journal. You know, the person was a little bit concerned about the treatment she got from the reviewers, and then I asked her to forward the report to. And then the report came, I opened my email, I saw the report, I went through the report, and the reviewer was saying, look, this is just street discussion. Street discussion, that's an insult of the highest order. When you get it, if you are not psychologically stable, it can take you down for a while. You know? So you need to prepare your manuscripts very carefully. And my advice is to develop several articles simultaneously, but give each of them sufficient time. So you could have up to 8 8 manuscripts, 8 different articles on your laptop being developed simultaneously. You attend to this, you attend to this, you attend to this. And one problem with developing a paper is that you don't just sit down, finish writing a paper in a month, and then the paper is ready. Sometimes it is better to allow it to gestate in your computer for a long time. Sometimes you might go to a function, a wedding, a church service, something else, or you went to a seminar, a conference, and then you return with an idea. You open the paper and you put the idea, you add the idea to the paper or to the manuscript. You find a way to fit it in. That's how your article keeps developing. It develops gradually until one day it becomes very formidable. When someone is reading it, the person is aware that he or she has been inundated with very strong arguments. When you revise or rewrite your paper, be sure to number the drafts, such as title of paper 1, title of paper 2, title of paper 3. So if you come to my laptop and you check my documents, you see if I'm writing an article titled The Ideal and the Non-Ideal, the Ideal and the Non-Ideal. You see ideal and non-ideal 1, ideal and non-ideal 2, ideal and non-ideal 3. Those are the drafts. Sometimes it is good to keep the old drafts because there are some information you've deleted in the new drafts which you might need to put back. And then if you didn't keep the old draft, then it means more energy and time. If you have the old draft, you open it and then the information is still there. Now, when you are working on a paper, there are 3 major ways to get feedbacks on a paper you are developing. First of all, by presenting it at conferences. That's why we go to conferences. We go to conferences to present our manuscripts. Conferences cost money in travel and accommodation, and you may not succeed in going to a conference for every single paper you are writing. And the second major way of getting feedbacks is review by your colleagues. But the third one is to simply submit to a journal after thorough preparation and get the review reports. If the paper is not very good, you might receive many desk rejections. In that case, submit to a journal owned by a professional association. So now, what do I do? I have a list of journals according to their rankings. When I finish writing a paper, I start by submitting to, I already know that the first journal I'm submitting to might not be the journal that will publish it. I'm submitting because I want feedbacks. I submit, get reports. I use those reports to revise the paper, and then I submit again to another journal. That is if the first journal rejected. I submit to another journal. If it is another rejection, I get their reports. I sit down, compare the reports to reports of the first journal I submitted. I begin to jot down the common points made by the 2 sets of reports. If there is an argument that reviewers made in the first journal, and that argument was repeated by reviewers in the second journal, then it means that I am not paying attention to what people are saying. So at that point, you need to admit to yourself that you have to do something about that point, the point that reviewers in both journals are raising. And then you also use the report of the set of reports from the second journal to work on the paper. And if they had rejected it, you submit it to a third journal. Now, the average number of journals you pass through to publish your paper is about 3 or 4. It's not just me, it is general. In fact, I read it somewhere. There is this manual for publishing in philosophy journals. The author of that manual said that the average number of journals that your paper needs to pass through before it finds a journal that finds it suitable for publication is 3 or 4. So when you are getting journal rejections, don't get discouraged. It is already part of the business, how it works. And then considering the third option, which is to get your reports from journals, you actually get your best report from journals. When you get reports from conferences, when you present to people in a conference and people are asking questions, people are making, those ones are not really rigorous. The rigorous contributions to your paper come from journal reports. So nothing else can be compared to journal reports, not conferences, not reviews by your colleagues, not any of those things. And it is also the cheapest and most convenient option. The disadvantage is that you have to wait for 3 months and above to get those reports. But the advantage is that journal review reports are far superior, more accurate, and more thorough compared to conference feedbacks and reviews of colleagues who do not want to hurt your feelings. So ultimately, it is the journal review that will help you build your paper to a publishing level. So whether you like it or not, journal reviews are the way to go. They may be painful. Of course, most journal reports, they are, when you read many journal reports, they may affect your feelings. They may, because of course, the reviewers don't know who the writer is, and they know that the writer would never know who the reviewer is. So they are free with their words. They can lambast you as much as they want, but that's part of it. You need to put your emotions aside and try to look at actually what they are saying, the points they are making. So some bit of emotional maturity is. I have colleagues who stop publishing in journals just because of the review reports they receive. Unfortunately, it affected their career. They are not able to get promotions and those things. If you're writing to a journal in the global north, be brief in your submission email or letter. Do not reveal a lot about your status. If you are below the senior level, a PhD student, postdoctoral fellow, junior staff, lecturer, if you are in an African institution, otherwise they treat you according to what they know of majority in those categories. So you don't need to reveal your status, your social status, because already there is a performance average for each category. They may not know if you are exceptional. If, for instance, you tell them that you are a PhD student, then they may rate you along with the average PhD student, not the exceptional PhD students. And then they will say, oh, this work, we're not sure whether we want to spend time reading it. And then they may just reject it out of hand. The same thing goes with when you reveal that you are just an ordinary lecturer, a lecturer who has not been promoted. So those things, such information is not necessary when you are writing to the editor. Just write your first name, Ima. I'm submitting this paper to your journal. I look forward to the review reports. Best regards, Emmanuel. That's it. So be discreet about titles. If an editor calls you a doctor or a prof, be happy with that. Do not disabuse her of that, but do not also refer to yourself as such. Now, some journals might tell you how long the review will take. Some take 3 months. Once it's more than 3 months, write to the editor and tell her to send a gentle reminder to the reviewers. And then if they don't respond for a week, write another one. If you're writing the third one, then copy to the editor-in-chief, so that the editor handling that particular submission will see that you have also notified the editor-in-chief, that kind of thing. And then there will be some measure of oversight. Otherwise, if they keep ignoring, then you tell them, please, you are withdrawing your paper, because you can't allow your paper to be in a journal for 6 months, 1 year. I mean, you don't have forever. Your contract is going to run out, and then the university will decide whether they will renew it. Now, get used to harsh reviews. Otherwise, you will never be a scholar of renown. Do not take reviews personally. If, however, you think comments completely miss your point, you can ask the editor to send the paper to another reviewer. So sometimes you can tell the editor, please, can you send this to a third or a fourth reviewer? And then you say that, look, you you don't really accept some of the things that this particular reviewer has said. Understand that a reviewer is like a voter. She has absolute powers in her freedom of opinion and preference. Can you do anything to a voter? If someone decides to vote for Nanado rather than John Mahama, what are you going to do? Are you going to put her in prison? You can't do anything, So reviewers have that kind of absolute power. So you need to, when you are dealing with them, you need to have that in mind so that you know how to maneuver your relationships with the editors. Now, don't submit an article to 2 journals at the same time, but you can submit a book proposal to several publishing houses simultaneously. So you can submit a book manuscript to several publishers at the same time, but not an article to 2 journals at the same time. Obtain permissions for material you are using that requires permission. If your article is not open access, then read your copyright agreement document with the journal to see if you have a right to post the article to a public domain. Now, so if a journal publishes your article, you need to know whether you even have the permission to post that article to public domain. Because if the journal is selling that article, then posting it to a public domain means that you are already making it available to readers without any cost. Now, if you don't have permission to post an article publicly because the journal wants people to pay in order to have access to the article, you can still send it privately to people. That one, there is no problem about it. If you sent it privately to someone and that person decided to make it public, you are not responsible. It is that person. Nobody, the journal can't blame you. Once you have submitted a paper, start a fresh one. Do not wait for the outcome of the first submission. Otherwise, you'll tie yourself emotionally to it. So the reason why some people are emotionally affected by review reports is that their papers are too few. But just imagine that about 10 of your papers are in different journals being reviewed, and then you receive a negative review from one of them saying, oh, we can't publish this and that. It won't affect you at all. It won't affect you because you are like a millionaire who lost about 50 CDs on the street. If you lose 50 CDs, it won't affect you. It won't affect you emotionally because if you are a millionaire. But if you are struggling, you are hungry, and you are passing through Medina and you lose 50 CDs, you don't know where your 50 CDs fell. You get home and you don't see it, you'll be crying. A millionaire who passes through the same experience will 50 CDs. He won't even remember he lost anything. So it is the same thing. It is the same thing here. If you have about 10 papers in different journals being reviewed, one of them sends you a negative report, you just wave it off. You work on it, send it to another journal, because the other 9 papers that are in other journals, they are serving as a kind of emotional backbone or, a buffer zone. They won't allow you to, to allow yourself to be messed up by reviewers. So the idea is that you have so many papers that the fate of each one does not really impact on your daily life. Some of your papers might never get published, usually because the entire topic or thesis is contradictory or not researchable. As I'm sitting here, this particular laptop I'm using contains at least 5 papers that are not, I myself have declared them non-researchable. And I think they are just there forever. They will never be sent anywhere. You can be doing a research and then you come to, you get stuck, you come to a cul-de-sac, and then you see that, no, this research won't get anywhere. And then you just leave it. Don't be emotionally hurt. Just leave it and, just conclude it as the downside of a gamble and you move on. Now, some faculty members in the humanities publish up to 6 journals annually. I remember when Professor Omenyo was the dean of the Faculty of Arts, and he had invited us to a faculty debar. He was lecturing us with PowerPoint slides, And then he came to the topic of the research output of faculty members in the Faculty of Arts. And then he listed some of those who were publishing the most number of articles per year. They included Prof. Adika, which is our first coordinator, Prof. Helen Lauer. So that was a very big motivator for me. So you need to learn how to publish at top speed. It helps you to rise. It helps your university to also rise. It helps everyone. No one suffers from it. Okay, so somebody like Prof. Thaddeus Mez of the University of Johannesburg, who is going to be lecturing you, he publishes about 16 times a year. So that one is on the very high side. Currently, he has more than 300 publications with almost 3,000 citations. So when I was building this slide, it was actually about 200 publications with about 2,000 citations. So right now, you can replace the 2 with the 3. And majority of the publications are after he became a full professor. So he's not publishing to get promoted, which is another idea you need to consider, because most of us, when we get promoted, then we say, oh, that's the end of publishing. So it doesn't work that way. You need to keep publishing so that you keep your university rankings high. Now, so you need to organize your lifestyles around high productivity. Know what to cut out from your schedules. Membership of so many social and religious associations, is not a good idea. So you need to free up sufficient time to focus on your research. Also get sufficient sleep, and so that you still have time for your research. Remember that lack of sleep lowers your capacity for original thinking. No invention enters a dull and hurting brain. If you punish your body, it will punish your career. And then check your feeding habits. Don't eat too heavily. People with pot bellies are not academic stars. And then check your marriage and children. Avoid conflicts and controversies. Be mindful of jealousy, which sometimes come in direct proportion to performance gaps. Okay, so that's just about it. If we have any contributions, they will be welcome. I had built this slide and prepared this lecture so that some of the things you are going to find out through painful experience will be spared of you by just having these slides, listening to this class. Most of the materials I've presented came from years of experience. So just imagine if you can substitute years of experience with just 2 hours of a class. That's what I wanted it to look like. So please, any questions before we round up, and then I'll post this, I'll send this video to your WhatsApp platforms for those who couldn't make it to the class.
So, this is Lamte.
Yeah, Lamte. Foster had also raised his hand. Yeah, but okay, Lamte, go ahead.
Yes. I'm thinking about what you said about you need to publish more journals than books to get promoted. And I'm wondering, maybe, does it not have to do with maybe the originality of the idea of the book, maybe in terms of originality, the quality of the book is not anything exceptional. But if there's an originality to the concept and the argument, I'm thinking a book should have higher review. I mean, as you said, maybe 5 times more than an article. I don't know what you think.
Oh yes. Well, I could comment that I'm not in complete agreement with the university for giving books just twice the points of an article. I think there is an injustice there. First of all, it is the scientists who have been leading the university that did it. Those from the natural sciences, they don't normally publish books. They publish articles, scientific papers and all this. So a book wasn't really in their interest. And because of that, they gave it low points, But
Okay.
books are supposed to have high points. I'm not sure there's any university that has given books enough points to be 5 times the points of an article, which is what it should be. I think that what most universities have done is to give a book the equivalent of three articles. But
Okay.
here it is 2. You know, in Cape in Cape Coast at UCC it is still 3. No, at UCC they have stepped it down from 3 to 2. You know, it was 3 up to just 2 years ago, and then their latest promotion guidelines struck it down. You know, so I don't know. Many universities are just distancing themselves from books and then emphasizing more of journal articles.
More journal, okay.
Yeah, but if you publish a book, it is good. Remember that in certain countries, you can't be a professor without a book.
Yeah.
So if you published your PhD as a book, then already you have flattened down that criteria, and then you just be working to get articles and book chapters and those things.
Okay.
So publishing a book also has its advantages.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know your master's dissertation can give rise to a very interesting book. So it's very good. I'm aware of that. My mind is there. And
okay, sir.
I'm one of those who are hoping that it will come out as a book.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for the encouragement.
It's fine. Mr. Foster.
Yeah, thank you very much, Doc. I'm very happy about the lecture this afternoon. And I would like to ask this question, whether it's possible after you publish in a predatory journal and you realize that, yes, it has been published in a predatory journal, can you republish in any of the recognized journals? That is question number 1.
Yeah, I had that problem. Because I published somewhere and I wanted to republish it, but because it is already appearing online, it was a big problem. Now, for many well-established journals, one of their stages of review is that they would you have this what do you call it? This plagiarism checker, you know, that you also use as students. They will pass it through online to see if there's anything online that is like that. Once they identify, then that's it. They wouldn't want. Basically, it is against the interest of journals to publish something that is already visible.
Okay.
They want to publish something that is not there.
Okay.
Because that is precisely their objective, to bring something that comes as a surprise to people. Just imagine you woke up this morning to hear that there has been an assassination attempt at the president, you know, and then you are getting that news from one of these TV stations, you know.
Okay.
And then it takes a while for the other TV stations to report the same thing. So that's how it looks like. The TV station or the media that gets to report something first, you know, takes quite a lot of credit. You see this, some of these BBC, you know, CNN, Al Jazeera, they send investigators to even very dangerous countries to go and get information. They even send people to battlefields to go and get some videos, some very scary videos, so that they can show it on the videos showing things that people know is difficult to get ordinarily. You know, they get those things so that they air them. You know, that's how they get their money. That's how they get their credit and all those things. You know, so it's the same thing with journals. Once it's already online, no, they wouldn't want to. In my case, I just abandoned the idea and simply wrote more papers. So you get faced with such decisions in your career, you just have to do them.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. David.
Thank you, Prof.
Yes. David.
Thank you so much, Prof, for the insightful presentation. My issue has to do with what is known as relevance in academia. So sometimes when you are working on your promotion and you present your papers, it happens to, or before the panel, sometimes they will ask how relevant is your paper, especially when they feel you are all over the place. You've done publications in almost everything in the area. So you have some publication here and there. So I don't know how we can address that issue. I think you mentioned having a niche, and sometimes also looking at areas that you can create originality from. But sometimes the issue of the university itself looking at whether what you are publishing is also relevant. So the publishing houses may have received your work and published and so on, but sometimes internally there are constraints from the university regarding the relevance of the paper to your career or your chosen field or discipline. Can you address that?
Yeah, yes. So let me start by saying that you are having this worry because you haven't gone into the business. If you are in the business, you know that universities cherish anything that is new, that is coming out, provided it is officially within a discipline. Now, let's assume that in linguistics or in English, or let's say linguistics, there is a new area, there's an underexplored area in linguistics, and then you decided to focus there, and then you direct your energies there, and then you start coming up with ideas that, that are being published. Then you find, then you realize that your being there is actually paying off. Now you apply for promotion. The university should actually reward you more for going to that area than for remaining in areas that are not only established but over-established, areas that have become old. What we're supposed to do as academics is to move on to areas where there is new research to be done, and every assessor for promotion, recognizes it. Remember that in the first place, assessors are also scholars in the same field. So they know when a research, they know a new research, they know the new areas, they know underexplored areas, So you see, okay, when I got my promotion to senior lecturer, I also asked my HOD to furnish me with the reports of assessors. And I was going through the reports, and the assessors were saying that the applicant has, applicant has contributed in a field that is in high need of contributions. Now, if before you started focusing on a particular underexplored field, you already have publications in older fields, it's good. An assessor will see that you moved from an older specialization to a newer one. It is normally appreciated rather than this thing. So, and there was this comment about versatility. The author has shown that he is versatile. So you may be worried that they will say you are all over the place, but that is not supposed to be a negative. It's supposed to be positive. It's supposed to be complemented, that you can move from one area to another. So I'm speaking from the point of view of philosophy. So now you can check, what field are you in the first place?
I'm in the linguistics department of linguistics. But Prof, I've heard this from a lecturer before, I think, but I think the university, some of these new universities have their own focus. So there's a university for media, or there's a university for this. So the emphasis was, how relevant is this you are doing for this university, which is supposed to be a communication university or something. There are some departments too where, so for instance, in linguistics, they want to find out, are you a social linguist? Are you a phonetician? Are you, so if one day they see your paper in social linguistics, another time they see you somewhere else, another they see you in literary studies, I don't know, but there are some cases where, I don't know about UG, but I know of few cases outside UG where people's promotions have been delayed because they feel they are doing some kind of skirt and blouse. So they are here, the next day they are there, and they don't seem to get the relevance of their work to the university's own concentrations.
Yes. So now you mentioned your area, your discipline, which is linguistics. I can see the problem that is playing out there, because in linguistics you have the specialization in linguistics are almost enough to begin to give rise to independent disciplines. For instance, literature could be a department, and then the other ones could also be departments. So crossing from one to the other, the boundaries between them has grown thicker, So they are not as slim as the boundaries between specializations in other subjects like philosophy. In philosophy, you could have publications in philosophy of mind, and also have publications in philosophy of religion, and then you have publications in African philosophy. You submit all of them for publication, and then you'll be praised for being versatile.
Yeah.
But in another department, it could play out differently. You go from literature to social linguistics, and they say, why this movement? Particularly when each area requires a different set of skills, and then going to different area requires substantial retool of your instruments, your cognitive instruments, your intellectual, methodological. So I think it depends on the field. So for your field, you have to check what you can do and what you can't do, so that you need to study your field well, study the specializations, settle the issues about where you can focus, and then you wouldn't be attacked.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's what.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Once you've answered those broad questions, then you can settle down and start working.
Doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add to what my brother said. I suffered a similar thing. I did MPhil in music, and then also did MA IT, and I published papers in the IT area and also music area. But the actual thing is that they currently they ask you what really you are teaching. So if you tender in a paper for promotion, the question is that you did MPhil in music, which is your field. You did IT, MA IT, you are teaching IT. We expect your publication should come from, because it's the IT that you are teaching now. So why are you tendering a paper from music?
Yes, so you can see that the boundary between music and IT is so thick that, I mean, there's nothing explains why research activity will be going on in the area where the teaching is not going on. So you see that. So it all depends. It still comes back to how thick is the boundary between the two fields. Yeah, so that's it. Abigail.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Actually, I've realized that some of these predatory journals have very good articles. And so if you are doing a research, can you make references to some of these articles in predatory journals, or it's not good to do that? Thank you.
You can cite articles from anywhere. You can even cite articles from blogs. Like in my field, you can cite newspaper statements. You can even cite conversations, emails. So in the matter of citation, you are actually looking for printed material that you want to cite as maybe to respond to, or to comment about, and those things. But the quality of the source of your citation, is not the serious issue. The serious issue is where you published. There's one of my papers that cited there was a paper in which 50% of my citations were actually a discussion in this university, not journal articles, books, and those things. There was a debate we had here in Legon, and I decided to publish my opinion about it. So more than 50% of my citations were emails, you know. There was nothing wrong with it. And then the other half were, published papers, publications, So from the onset, it is clear to the reviewer of the manuscript that this manuscript is actually extending a discussion that started somewhere, among philosophers. You see, so it may also depend on a discipline. In philosophy, this is allowed. Citing, there are good papers in predatory journals because those who published those papers there were not really aware of the predatory journal of a thing. So it is like you making that mistake yourself. You have suffered to write a very good, you have come up with very good research, but you didn't do enough research on where to publish it. So you ended up sending it to a predatory journal and then it was published. That is why you can find good papers in predatory journals. It's not because it's not always because the writers wanted to publish it there, but that it just happened that that's why there's this statement in one of my slides that knowing where to publish is as important as knowing how to write.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So what field that what is your discipline?
Hello, Prof.
Yeah,
I'm in didactics, French didactics.
Okay, French. So I wouldn't know how it is there. So I think there could be disciplinary differences. You need to find out.
Okay.
You should also be in communication with faculty members. You discuss these things a lot of times. You need to have friends who are older in the discipline, people who are accomplished publishers, so that you can be asking them in your particular field. You can see from my own field, I might not be able to address that question because it might happen that in French, they might frown at certain sources of citations, which is not the case in philosophy.
Okay.
So you need to have friends. You need to make friends with people who are older in the field so that they can be giving you information on those things, and then it will be sparing you a lot of bad experiences.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. And then Haruna.
Yes, Prof, thank you very much for your insightful experiences that you've shared with us. Maybe my question may have been answered, but I may want you to reiterate. I know there are certain journals, e-journals, that from time to time they will send invitation for papers. So at least you are aware that if you have a paper, you can send it there. But there are other journals too that you don't even know how to take your paper there. For example, the Western ones. So I just want a few clarification. If you have finished writing a paper and you are looking for a place to publish it, I mean, how do you go about? Do you go about searching for emails on the net or whatever? I just want a few clarification on that.
Oh yeah, that's a very good question. Very good one. Yeah. So yeah, I think responding to this question will be like a mini class of about 5 minutes, or 10 minutes. First of all, and I don't want to miss something. I have several things to say, so I need to begin somewhere. First of all, you get emails from journals soliciting articles. Now, the reason why you get those emails in the first place is that those journals are not receiving submissions. If they are not receiving submissions, then it means that writers don't generally consider those journals worth submitting to. So by the time you receive an email from a journal editor, you should know that there is there is something that has gotten that editor to that point. Now, the well-established journals, those journals that have existed for a long time, they won't invite you to papers unless it is for special issues. Sometimes they announce that they want to publish a special issue. That is an issue surrounding a particular topic, and they want all the publications in that particular issue to be about that topic. We call it special issue. So if a journal announces a special issue on something, for instance, the South African Journal of Philosophy, there was a time it announced that it will be publishing a special issue on world government. So people were submitting, people started writing, and they normally announce it about 2 years ahead, so that people will have 2 years to start writing on that topic, to start researching on that topic. If it is not that, if you look at the email and it is not a call for a special issue, if it is not a call for a special issue, it's just a call for regular articles, then what it means is that the editor hasn't been receiving regular articles. Any editor that has not been receiving regular articles, it is that the journal is starting new. If it is starting new, look at it very well. Look at the editor. What is the pedigree of the editor, the person who started the journal? Check all those things, because someone might start a journal and the journal might not even get off. They might not even be able to publish even the first issue. You send your paper there and it stays for 6 months, 1 year, and then at the end of the day, you still have to submit it to another journal, Or is it a journal that has lasted 2 or 3 years and their submission level is low? Those are the issues you ask yourself. And of course, many of those that send invitations to people are predatory journals, So you check the list of predatory journals to see if it is that list, And remember that when you start your career as lecturers, you have people who want to shoot you down. In some cases, some of you will have enemies in your department. The easiest way for an enemy to shoot you down is to say that a journal you published in is a predatory journal, and then provide evidence. The person can go and download there's this list of predatory journal. We call it the bills list. Download the bills list and then circles that journal with a pencil or pen and say, oh yeah, and that's the journal where you published. So those things can be quite disconcerting. So you need to avoid. So those invitations are, they should give you the red flag. A journal that is well established, a journal that is overwhelmed, with submissions will not go and be inviting people. I don't know if you understand my point. No journal that is overwhelmed will be inviting people, and those are the journals where you want to publish,
Thank you, Prof.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Joshua.
Yes, Doc.
Yeah, Joshua.
Please, I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
One, can an editor ask you to pay a review fee and then pay another money for publication? And two, I want to find out if the disparity between the sciences and the humanities, is it because the scientists test things that are inanimate, and then the humanities test, for example, human beings, and therefore there are varied opinions of human beings? That is why researching into humanity areas are difficult, or seem not to be so much. For example, maybe you are texting something on human environment. A lot of people are aware of their environment. They can ask questions, they can oppose. But for example, if I'm testing on a soil and how a particular animal is able to survive in there, the soil can't talk for itself. I have to apply some chemical for it to change. And it will be difficult for like the ordinary person to ask questions. Okay, is that not the reason why the humanities seem not to have more publication in our area of specialization?
Yeah, you're right. So starting with your second question, the answer to that question is in the affirmative. And we actually talked about it at the early part of the class. You know, that there's this basic distinction, you know, in the nature of research between the two parts of the university. The natural scientists have a pretty straightforward work to do with natural phenomena, you know. So they basically research closed systems. The system that natural scientists research are closed. You know, they are closed systems because the answers are not open to controversy. But the systems that the humanities scholars research are open systems. You remember we did it in our class last week. They are open systems because human beings have multiplicity of opinions for virtually every issue under the sun. So because of that, there is a multiplicity of arguments in humanities, multiplicity of perspectives, multiplicity of approaches, multiplicity of positions, multiplicity of arguments. And what you mostly see in the humanities are single authorships or sole authorships. You hardly see 3, 4, or 5 scholars, you know, doing a single research, publishing it and those things, although it still happens. So that's the basic difference between the two. For that reason, the scientists publish more, you know, and they also publish in more numbers. Papers in sciences are, you know, usually published by many authors. When, for instance, you look at the CV, when you see the CV of a natural scientist, you check his publications, you see that most of his publications are by a multitude of authors. I don't think you are hardly likely to see a sole authorship. There's this guy in the Department of Department of Animal what? Something botany, I can't remember. When I wanted to apply for promotion, I asked him to send me his own application so that I see some, you know, some how he did certain things. And then he sent me, one of those he sent me was a list of his publications. And I was looking at the publications, I was looking at the authorship area, and I saw that there is not a single sole authorship there. And in fact, many of the publications were by up to 20, 50 scholars, 20 or 50 scholars. All of their names will be listed, and each of them will be getting credit for it. So just imagine that you are just one out of 50 scholars that published a single paper. And then many of your papers are like that. But someone in the humanities has to publish one alone. So already you see that there is an advantage in speed on the side of the natural scientists. I mean, if we are 50 people and we are publishing, each of us is doing it at a higher rate, you know, because there are many other people involved. You know. So these are disciplinary differences that, you know, so that's why you see, when we started the class, we showed a pie chart of the contributions by various sections of the university. And then you saw that medicine alone was contributing about 50% of the total publication output in the university. It is not because those in medicine are more hardworking compared to those in fact, those in medicine should be doing a lot of work in the hospitals, and, you know, and some of this thing. So it's not because they are more hardworking or that they are superhuman. It is because the nature of their research has, you know, has already given them a head start. You can call that a head start. All right. And then to the first your first question was about an editor asking you to pay a reviewer fee in addition to a publication fee.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a journal that is struggling. A journal that is struggling. So it is either a predatory journal, or even if the journal is, I think there was a journal that asked me to do that, but in my entire life, only one journal has asked me to do that. Eventually, I didn't publish there. I sent it to another journal.
Okay.
Yeah, reviewers are not normally paid. I mean, when you are a lecturer in your department, you get manuscripts from journals. Editors send you an article asking you, please, will you review this manuscript for publication? If you agree, then they will say, okay, please, we need it at most 1 month or 3 months. You know, nothing is paid. It's part of the profession. You know.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Doc.
You're welcome, Joshua. Isaac Dankwa, have you asked your question already?
No, Doc. Thank Doc for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Doc, my first has to do with the issue of predatory journals. It seems it keeps coming up, but usually what we find is that journals that are legitimate usually don't ask for fee. But the other requirements for a journal to be legitimate are not specifically given. So I was thinking if there could be some specific points that will guide us so that we differentiate journals that are predatory from those that are not. Again, I would like to know if there is any body, any institution or whatsoever that is mandated or has the mandate to come up with the list of predatory journals. I'm asking this question because I'm thinking the issue of predatory journal could also be a means for those journals that are well established to have monopoly, and for that matter, intimidate or prevent other journals that will take some time to grow. Related to this question, I would like to know if there are instances where journals that are purported to be predatory have grown to become legitimate or acceptable ones. It seems I have a lot of questions. I don't know if I can continue.
Yes. Those questions are very good. In fact, I have noted them. And there's a common theme that is running through the questions, and that is what is the exact status of predatory journals? Why are they predatory journals? And those things. Now, yes, there are journals that prey on people. They publish for money. They ask for money for publication and those things. So some scholars in the West began to notice that, and then they decided to come out with a list of journals that publish mostly because of money. Now, if the focus is on money, it means they are not really interested in the quality of the work. You give them work, you give them a manuscript, but because they want the money anyways, there is little motive to reject the manuscript. That is, in other words, they are more likely to publish than to reject, because after all, they want the money. You can't be rejecting something and losing money. So once the financial motive overrides the quality control, then it means that the journal is is predatory. That's where the word predatory originated from. Now, having said that, you look at the journals in the West, they have been established for a long time. They publish, and then people pay, so they are getting revenue for their work. Now, they notice that these other ones are coming up, also trying to get revenues for their work. And then they come up with a list, showing that some of these journals are more interested in the money than in the quality of the work. Yes, so in some instances, their motives are, somehow political. But in some other instances, they are right. They have points, because there are some journals where there's this journal I sent my paper. They reviewed it for just about 3 days, and they asked me to pay. They sent the review. I looked at the review. It didn't really address the issues raised in the paper. At a point, I noticed that they are not really interested in the quality of the paper. They just want me to send that money, and then it will appear, even when it was time for proofreading. Some of the issues I raised, they weren't really interested. Their attention was not there. They just wanted it to publish online so that they will go on to the next scholar and then get his money as well. So the West, someone in the West, or some people in the West, came up with that list, to guide people in selecting journals. Now, that is why I distinguished 3 categories of journals that you can focus on. Focus on Scopus journals, that's number 1. But number 2, focus on university journals. Universities around the world run journals. There are university-wide journals. There are department-level journals. Some departments own and run journals. Some faculties or schools run journals. Some colleges have journals. You could go to some universities, their business school has a journal, or their law school, their school of law has a journal. Those things. Now, those journals are safe to publish. Okay. Classifying such journals as predatory, it's not convincing. So even when you go to the list of predatory journals, you don't find university journals among those journals. And then the 3rd category are journals run by professional associations. In Ghana, we have, we don't have an association of professional philosophers in Ghana, but we have one in Nigeria. There's this one called the Nigerian Philosophical Association. They meet once every 2 years. Philosophy lecturers from universities around the country attend it. You have the Philosophical Society of South Africa. So South Africa has a very prominent philosophy association. They have a journal. If I see that journal in the list of predatory journals, I'll have my doubts. I'll be surprised. So, but the truth be told, there are people who have founded journals to make money. There is this one at Benin. There's this one at Benin in Nigeria. They founded it. One lecturer opened it. It is published by, what's the name of that publishing platform? Is it Journals Online? Something Journals Online, So he founded it. It is not owned by a department. It is not run by a department. It is not under the affiliation of any university. He just founded it personally and started running it. And he has this lady who is his editorial assistant. It is not just one journal, it's a group of them. So he's running it. And then after he ran it for 2 or 3 years, some Western scholars picked it up and then included it in the list of predatory journals. So those are the kinds of journals you see in that list. Now, a journal, it is possible for a journal, even in a university or a department, to fall into the predatory list if they are doing any of those things that for which journals are classified as predatory. That is, if you are asking for money for one thing or the other. Normally it is money, you ask for money for this, you ask money. Somebody talked about asking money for review, So once it is noticed that you have a financial motive, a very clear financial motive in founding a journal, then it is a red flag. And then they check the quality of papers coming out. There are some journals you check some of the papers, you read it, even in the abstract, you notice up to 10 typographical errors. Just in an abstract of 200 words, 10 typographical errors. So that automatically you know that the editors are not interested in the papers, Then you check and see that they take money, probably they take up to $300 for publishing, That kind of practice doesn't help academia in any way, So that is the origin of those journals in that category. Now, if the editor of a journal has found himself or herself in that category, you can get out of it. You can get out of it by, reviewing your policies, what you do. There are certain, I didn't really take out time to assemble the reasons why journals are classified as predatory. There are a number of reasons, but right now, I just remember that one of the reasons is that they go and include the names of prominent academics in their editorial board without the person's permission. So for instance, someone starts a journal somewhere, and then the person would include the name of one professor at a university in South Africa or in UK or in the US. Take the person's name, put it in the editorial board of the journal so that people will think that it is a very good journal. Meanwhile, the person doesn't know, So those things, when you see a journal that is doing that, it is one of the reasons for flagging journals as predatory, But in summary, when editors begin to do that, you see that they are desperate, and normally desperacy has a motive. So there are a lot of things surrounding it. I think it needs, it actually needs a class of its own. If I can sit down and do a research on predatory journals, that would be very, very good. Joshua.
All right, thank you, Doc.
Yes, you're welcome. Yeah, Joshua, do you have something to say? Your hand is still up.
No, please, no, please.
Okay. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I'm going to upload this video right now to YouTube, and then I'll get to give you guys a link. All right, so this is a Monday. We have the whole week, the entire week ahead of us. I wish you guys a very productive week. Work hard so that you'll be great, and we will all be looking up to you guys. Yeah, tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Prof.
Have a great week too.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank
We are
you,
very
Doc.
much grateful, sir.
Thank you, Doc.